Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation joins us right now as the Eagles and the Cowboys coming up on Sunday. BLG. What's up, brother?
Doing good, Johnny Marks. How you doing?
Why does it seem like these Cowboy games end up being in weird spots and weird situations? Like we're sandwiched in between New Year's and Christmas. Well, I'll ask you about Jalen Hurts if he's playing, but they're missing a bunch of people. CeeDee Lamb's now out for the season. It's another weird Dallas week here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and one where, they flexed the start time to 1 o'clock. Like
1
when's the
o'clock.
last time you've seen the Eagles Cowboys play then? The answer is week 17 in 2017, that finale between the Eagles where they were resting their starters against the Cowboys. At that point, they'd already clinched the 1 seed. Yeah, it's a bummer because, you look at the schedule, you're like, okay, week 17, Eagles Cowboys, probably for the division, probably a pretty meaningful game. And instead it's just like, doesn't really matter for one side, and the other side, it matters in terms of the stakes are important, but like it seems like a foregone conclusion at the same time.
Right, because let's say because the Cowboys have been competitive with Cooper Rush. They had that was a good win against the Buccaneers, and they've been able to run the ball a lot better as the seasons went on. But the Eagles are faced with, all right, well, even if we lose this game and Jalen doesn't play, the Giants aren't trying to win any games, and you have the Giants the following week. So that's a foregone conclusion. All right, so Jalen Hurts didn't practice yesterday. If you ask Adam Schefter, he didn't practice on Wednesday either, although that was an estimation. I would say at least my gut tells me he doesn't play on Sunday. What does your instinct tell you about Jalen Hurts on Sunday?
Yeah, the fact that he hasn't advanced far enough in the concussion protocol to even be a limited participant in practice prior to Friday here, and obviously we'll see where he is today. That'll be the final kind of result here. But yeah, I don't think Jalen Hurts is playing. I think typically when any kind of player misses the first 2 days of practice or is listed as missing the first 2 days of practice in a given week, typically odds are against them. And with a concussion, it just doesn't seem like he's going to be cleared in time to play for Sunday.
So Kenny Pickett, he had the rib injury, right? And I guess he's been limited, but he's been out there. And he's talking about how it's almost like they know that he's going to start this week because he's talking about starting. He was an Eagle fan growing up, family coming to the stadium or whatever. But what's his status as far as the injury? How bad was the injury, and where does he stand?
Yeah, he seemed optimistic even after the Commanders game that he would be able to play this week. But, he was listed as limited on Wednesday. He was upgraded to full on Thursday. But, you're seeing him with this, like, kind of big thing around his ribs. And he acknowledged he's going to have that extra padding. And the fact that the Eagles signed Ian Book to the practice squad, and we'll see how they handle him. But my guess is they might have him come up for game day. And the fact that they would, like, feel the need to do that kind of speaks to, okay, we're at least a little bit concerned that Pickett could kind of, get re-injured or not be able to make it through the game. And therefore we want to have, at least another option there for us in the event of an emergency. So I think that's kind of silly. It's like, if there's a guy, he's not 100%, and you have Tanner McKee, who I think it should be kind of a conversation anyway, who should be playing, Pickett or McKee. If they're both healthy, then to me it would be a no-brainer if it's, if one of those guys isn't healthy.
Right. Less than ideal that Jalen would be injured, play half a quarter. He would miss the game against the Cowboys. And if they do win, which they're still heavy favorites, so now he's not playing for 3 weeks until you're facing a first-round opponent, which is most likely going to be the Packers or Washington. Man, when the Eagles were rolling and they had 10 straight wins, it looked like, all right, like things are moving in the right direction heading into the playoffs. And then one friggin' hit kind of derails everything that they had going for them. How concerning is this for you that everything's been kind of thrown off as we enter the last two weeks of the season?
Yeah, it really does feel that way. What could have been this big win over the Commanders to sweep them and have a chance to go 6-0 in the division, which the Eagles certainly just don't do every year here, down the stretch, or rest their starters more, or just have that certainty there, and to not have that here. It's a little frustrating. I think I'll be interested to see how they handle Jalen. Let's assume they do win this game. I would think they might want to get him some work early against the Giants, kind of like I would say like a preseason game, although they usually
Right.
don't play Jalen or their starters in the preseason. I think it'd be a little different here, though. The fact that they could just give him a drive or two and then try to get him primed for the playoffs. So I think we might be able to see him next week if they do win this game. And obviously, if they don't, then they have to play him, assuming he's cleared to play, because they would need that win in Week 18.
BLG, I'm looking at this. It's playoffstatus.com, and it's the probabilities of who they play, who each team could play, percentage of making the playoffs or whatever. And right now, there's a 63, at least according to this, there's a 63% chance that the Eagles would play as the number 2 seed, would play the Commanders in the first round, a 26% chance they'd play the Packers, and an 11% chance that they would play the Buccaneers. So the Commanders being most likely, I don't like Jaden Daniels made a lot of plays with his legs that set up plays with his arms. They're a good young team. I have no worries that Vic Fangio, if they played the Commanders in the first round, doesn't say, well, you're not going to do that this week. And Terry McLaurin, you're not going to do what you did against us. Brian Robinson, you're going to have to beat us or whatever. So, I'm not worried, and I'm not going to talk myself into, oh, my God, you're playing a division team for the third time in a season. We're screwed, right? Honestly, the Commanders, to me, would be my most wanted matchup in the first round of the playoffs. How do you feel about the possible scenarios?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, you look at the history of quarterbacks making their first start ever in the playoffs, just guys with that lack of experience, and it's not very good. It's not in the favor of those players. So you have that, even though I think Jaden Daniels obviously really good. Um, but yeah, I mean, the Eagles are about to blow out this team last week before Jalen Hurts gets injured. So yeah, and that's in their building as well. So I'm not going to say they're not. They're a team that obviously has a really good record. They have not beaten a single team with a winning record this year, other than the Eagles, again, who lost their quarterback early in the game, and that came down to the wire still. So they're hardly this juggernaut. I don't think they're like the Packers were last year when they came into the playoffs hot as the number 7 seed there. It went down to Dallas and blew them out. I think if the Eagles play the Commanders another time, it'd be a decisive win in the Eagles' favor, assuming Jalen's able to make it through the game. I just think so many things went wrong. Obviously, they had the 5 turnovers that went right for them, but there's so many things went wrong in this Commanders game where Quinyon Mitchell gives up a touchdown. When have we seen that? Darius Slay gave up a big play. There's a lot of uncharacteristic things that I'm not really worried about happening. Jaden Daniels scrambles on 4th and 11. Credit to them. They played well. They deserve that win. And the Eagles, didn't play their A game by any means. But I just don't think that is indicative of what the next matchup would look like.
What was your reaction to the video that surfaced yesterday of Nick Sirianni apparently getting high-fived too hard by Zach Ertz after the game? And then Sirianni shouting at Zach Ertz, and then they had, I guess, a little, they had some words before Big Dom got in. What can Nick Sirianni just control himself in some of these situations? He's so emotional, and I think that works for him for what he does. But man, and I'm listen, this is the first time I even brought it up today because the fans are media, always trying to start stuff. Nick Sirianni, I didn't have to get something broken up with Zach Ertz to where Zach had to talk about it yesterday and he was asked about it. But it always seems like Nick's in the middle of a lot of extracurricular activities.
Yeah, it's weird. And one thing I don't like about it is that you lost the game. So don't be why are you mocking Zach? Why are you talking trash? You lost the game. Just congratulate him, whatever. And even if he is kind of giving you guff or whatever, you lost. He deserves to be able to do that. And number 2, it's the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Maybe don't mock that guy. Maybe don't taunt that guy. It's a weird decision to me. It wasn't, ultimately this, major fight or anything, but it's just weird and unnecessary is how I put it.
He's arguing. He's sideline confrontations. I heard Colin Cowherd say this, Brandon, where for any other team in the NFL, 31 other teams, Nick Sirianni doesn't work. But on this team, he's yelling at fans. They're fighting on the sidelines. He's getting into a confrontation with Zach Ertz, man. It's wild. One day someone's going to write a book, and it's going to be something, man. Maybe you can write the book.
Yeah, there we go.
Vikings Green Bay. pretty amazing. Green Bay's, this is a pick 'em. It's at Minnesota. Minnesota's fighting for the division. They win. They have the Lions final week of the season. They can win the friggin' division. But who do you like in this game, man? Because the line will tell you, like, why in Minnesota is this game a pick 'em? Minnesota's found ways to win a lot of these games, and they should be getting credit for it. That tells you the line makers don't buy Minnesota as a true top of the conference team.
Absolutely. And looking at their schedule here, they had that little, slide there where they lost the only 2 games and yeah, to your point, not only can they win the division, they'd be the 1 seed maybe,
Yep.
which is kind of crazy to think about Sam Darnold being the number 1 seed. But the Vikings, they had that slide there where they lose to the Lions. It's a close game. They lose to the Rams on Thursday Night Football, kind of get unlucky there at the end of the no face mask call. But like in their stretch since then, and give them credit for beating the bad teams, but where's their signature win, really? Even this entire year, like they don't really have that yet. And I think they're a good team, but I just don't know that they're a great team, and I don't know that they're quite capable of beating some of these really good teams here. So I think that's exactly why you see the line like it is, and I'm going to roll with the Packers here. They have, to me, the higher ceiling, and they have the ability to beat some of those really good teams.
It's going to be a good one. All right, last thing, BLG. Did you have on your former Eagle bingo card Deshaun Jackson, head coach at Delaware State, and Mike Vick, head coach at Norfolk State?
The Deshaun one especially. That is just, I'm surprised. I just can't even imagine Deshaun in Dover, Delaware. Like, what's he going to be doing down there? I mean, obviously, I guess coaching, and he's locked in. I don't know, but it's just a surprise. Although I guess it is kind of fun that it's 2 former Eagles coaching in the same conference there.
I hope he knows what he's getting himself into. Like with Mike Vick, it feels like that he's like pretty mature, right? Like he understands like Deshaun. And I spent some time with Deshaun when he was back in town for his retirement tour, doing beer appearances, Miller Lite appearances. And I love Deshaun. Deshaun's a good dude, but also like, you're a head coach of a football team, right? Like you need to be the one that's kind of setting the agenda in the table. I just hope he knows what he's doing because, he doesn't have any experience coaching. He might have been coaching at to a youth level or something back in California, but this is a whole different thing.
Yeah, again, unexpected. Yeah, Mike Vick actually did have some coaching experience. He did something with like one of those, or he was going to be an offensive coordinator in like one of those spring leagues or whatever.
Oh yeah, and that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And he's a quarterback. There's like it's a quarterback. You're on the sideline during the game. You have that the headset on. Like there's some kind of you're like involved in that process to some extent. Where I don't know that Deshaun has been involved at the same level. So yeah, really fascinated to see how long that lasts and how that goes.